It emerged through the parade haze with a hard mechanical rhythm that didn't ask for attention so much as command it. The Vickers, 6-ton, was compact and unpretentious, yet its outline carried the unmistakable confidence of a machine built for a world that was starting to turn uneasy. Crews trusted its clean controls and simple mechanical layout, knowing clarity could matter more than raw force when steel met uncertainty. It lacked glamour, and its engine note sounded like it was negotiating with the laws of physics, but this unassuming tank carried an idea powerful enough to reshape how nations thought about armour. For a moment, all eyes fixed on the machine that proved small could still be consequential. Britain entered the late 1920s with an armoured doctrine straining under its own contradictions. Heavy tanks remained expensive, slow, and strategically awkward, while lighter vehicles lacked the protection or practical firepower to justify their presence on a modern battlefield. As budgets tightened and overseas commitments spread thin, the War Office needed something smaller, cheaper, and perhaps most importantly, achievable within modest industrial means. The fundamentals driving this requirement were straightforward yet urgent: a compact hull that could be produced by civilian factories without major reconfiguration, a suspension robust enough for colonial terrain, and a drivetrain simple enough for crews with minimal specialist training. British planners were wrestling with a gap between their aspirations and their actual procurement capabilities, and the search for an adaptable light tank became inevitable. The Vickers company saw that gap as an opportunity, proposing a machine whose riveted armour and twin bogie suspension offered a balance of weight, stability, and manufacturability rarely seen at the time. Its modest 6-ton frame fit the logistical realities of rail transport and narrow roads common across Europe and Asia, giving it strategic portability many heavier vehicles simply could not achieve. It was an answer built on necessity rather than extravagance, and the designers seemed determined to prove that sensible engineering could outperform half the empire's optimism. The stage was set for a machine defined not by excess, but by pragmatic ambition. The vision behind the Vickers 6-ton emerged from a design philosophy that centered on clarity rather than complexity. Engineers targeted a vehicle that could be assembled in reasonable quantities, serviced with everyday tools, and sold abroad to customers whose industrial base varied dramatically. This philosophy was not driven by British military demand alone, but also by the commercial reality that export sales kept design firms solvent in a peacetime economy. At the heart of the concept lay three key convictions. First, a compact hull made from riveted plates could deliver sufficient protection without the cost and tooling demands of large castings. Second, a conventional petrol engine mounted transversely could simplify maintenance while offering enough power for the tank's limited weight. Third, the option for either a twin-turret machine gun layout or a single-turret cannon layout would broaden its appeal to armies with different tactical doctrines. Vickers' drawing offices sketched a tank meant to thrive in the hands of nations still modernizing, giving them an affordable foothold in contemporary armour tactics. The focus on modularity and export versatility turned what could have been a niche British light tank into a globally relevant product line. There was ambition here, but it was ambition bound tightly to practicality, and the designers seemed convinced the world might prefer a tank that didn't constantly threaten to bankrupt the treasury. The Vickers 6-ton began its life as a vision of sustainable modernization rather than a pursuit of extravagance. The construction of the Vickers 6-ton followed a manufacturing rhythm shaped by interwar budgets and the need for export-friendly versatility. Production relied on riveted armour plates cut to tight tolerances, allowing sections to be swapped or repaired without major rework. This choice avoided the cost of large machine presses and instead leaned on skilled riveting crews who could assemble hulls with reliable structural integrity even in modest workshops. Its suspension, 2 bogies per side, each using a pair of road wheels linked by a bell crank, required careful alignment during assembly. If the bell cranks were even slightly misaligned, the tank transmitted excessive vibration through the hull, forcing adjustments before final acceptance. The design, simple on paper, demanded precision during build, illustrating how even light tanks relied on disciplined engineering practice. The powertrain installation followed a similarly pragmatic path. The engine, a modest yet dependable petrol unit, sat transversely to reduce driveline length and free up internal space. Mechanics appreciated this arrangement because it allowed direct access to key service points without removing large armour plates. This practical detail meant the tank could be maintained in climates ranging from European winters to the heat of Anatolia with minimal downtime. Behind each finished vehicle stood a balance of cost control, export optimism, and manufacturing discipline, and factory testers quickly learned that every tank developed its own interpretation of what smooth running meant. Once accepted, these machines moved from workshop floors to the nations that had pinned their hopes on accessible armoured capability. Trial runs placed the Vickers 6-ton in conditions that revealed both its underlying strengths and its limitations with uncompromising clarity. On firm ground, the tank's compact frame and modest power plant combined to produce predictable, almost deliberate handling, the sort of behaviour that made training crews feel they were guiding a cooperative machine rather than wrestling an unpredictable one. In soft terrain, however, its narrow tracks and light footprint demanded disciplined throttle control to avoid bogging, particularly on damp fields common across Central and Eastern Europe. Crew drills highlighted the value of its straightforward layout. Commanders found that the raised turret position improved observation, while drivers benefited from the uncluttered internal arrangement that made long hours inside more tolerable than many contemporaries. Yet tests also revealed the limits of the riveted hull, which transmitted vibration into the crew compartment at higher speeds, leading to fatigue on extended exercises. Weapon trials demonstrated the flexibility of its configurations. The dual turret model allowed wide arcs of suppression fire, while the single turret variant delivered more decisive firepower with its larger caliber armament. Trials also exposed occasional overheating during sustained movement, prompting crews to manage engine load carefully during manoeuvres. Such evaluations shaped early operational doctrine, offering nations a clear sense of what the tank could realistically achieve, and instructors joked that the suspension responded best when spoken to politely, though no manual ever admitted this. What these trials proved above all was that the Vickers 6-ton offered true capability when treated with technical respect and practical discipline. Operational deployment exposed the Vickers to the realities that no factory assessment could fully replicate. In Poland, the Type A twin-turret layout delivered strong suppressive arcs during manoeuvre, but its machine gun-only armament highlighted the emerging need for tanks capable of defeating armour rather than merely shaping infantry engagements. The Type B variant, equipped with a single larger gun, represented a more concentrated solution, aligning better with the shifting demands of interwar tactics. In China, the tank confronted urban fighting and broken terrain that punished every moving part. The suspension endured constant shock loads, revealing both its durability and its limitations, as debris and rubble challenged the narrow tracks. The simple mechanical layout enabled rapid field servicing, and the radiator positioning proved particularly valuable in hot climates, reducing thermal stress compared to bulkier foreign designs. Turkey's adoption demonstrated a different kind of outcome, a stable platform suited for training, modernization, and early mechanization where reliability and maintainability outranked advanced firepower. These differing national experiences showed how the same vehicle could deliver distinct results depending on doctrine, environment, and industrial support. Across all theatres, performance painted a consistent technical picture, a tank that excelled within its design parameters yet struggled when pushed beyond them, and its driveline developed a habit of reminding operators that optimism alone was not a substitute for torque. What emerged was neither triumph nor failure, but a machine defined by honest mechanical limits and well-judged engineering priorities. The Vickers produced an influence that extended far beyond the intentions of its original designers. Its export-driven architecture offered smaller nations an accessible route into mechanized warfare, accelerating armoured modernization across regions that previously relied on cavalry or improvised vehicles. This accessibility reshaped procurement patterns by proving that a compact, affordable platform could form the backbone of developing armoured forces without excessive industrial strain. Its straightforward mechanical systems had economic consequences as well. Simplified drivetrains, service-friendly access points, and a modest engine reduced lifetime maintenance costs, making it viable for countries with limited spare parts networks. This helped shift global expectations of what a light tank could offer, encouraging doctrines that prioritized mobility, fuel economy, and logistical realism over sheer armor thickness or firepower. Politically, the tank's wide distribution created new patterns of interoperability and competition. Nations that purchased the Vickers 6-ton gained a common mechanical baseline, influencing training structures and shaping early armoured thinking. At the same time, its presence encouraged rival states to pursue their own mechanization efforts, accelerating regional arms development far faster than predicted. Even its limitations had unexpected effects. The shortcomings in track width, cooling capacity, and riveted armour informed later design choices across Europe and Asia, embedding lessons that influenced several subsequent domestic programs, and the tank's modest frame became an unlikely benchmark for how much performance could be extracted from careful engineering rather than brute force design. The Vickers 6-ton created ripples through strategy, economics, and industrial planning in ways that exceeded its humble silhouette. The Vickers left a legacy that spread far beyond the relatively small number of units produced. Its structural layout, export-friendly engineering, and modular turret concept formed the backbone of several later armoured developments, most notably the Polish 7TP and the Soviet T-26, two tanks that would go on to define early armour doctrine in their respective regions. This influence demonstrated how a well-balanced light tank could serve not as an endpoint, but as a foundation for national design philosophies. Its emphasis on manufacturability proved equally significant. Countries with modest industrial bases found the riveted hull, straightforward drivetrain, and service-oriented access points ideal templates for establishing domestic armoured production. The lessons drawn from maintenance cycles, engine placement, and suspension geometry shaped how factories approached mechanised vehicle design throughout the 1930s. The Vickers 6-ton became a technical reference point for what was achievable within tight industrial constraints. Operationally, its mixed field performance clarified global thinking about tank roles. It pushed armies to separate reconnaissance, infantry support, and breakthrough tasks into distinct categories, encouraging clearer tactical specialization. Its shortcomings, particularly track width and cooling capacity, likewise prompted designers to adopt wider tracks, improved radiators, and welded armour in future models. Across multiple continents, the machine created a lineage of ideas rather than a single iconic silhouette, and its compact frame became an unlikely reminder that influence often travels further through engineering logic than through scale. What endured was not its size or power, but the blueprint it offered for accessible, modern armoured capability. The Vickers, 6-ton, began as a modest machine built for customers. Britain never expected to follow a single path, yet its outline became a familiar presence across continents as armies learned the value of a tank that did not rely on extravagance to matter. Its compact hull, straightforward drivetrain, and export-focused design reflected an era when engineering progress often travelled by crate rather than by doctrine, allowing nations with differing resources to enter the age of armour on manageable terms. The machine's influence persisted because its underlying logic aged well. Riveted armour, while eventually obsolete, offered a manufacturing route that most countries could adopt without massive retooling. The bell crank suspension, though imperfect on rough terrain, provided a workable balance of travel and cost. Even the narrow tracks, despite their limitations, represented a lesson that later designers refined into more capable running gear. These accumulated details allowed the tank's legacy to grow through adaptation rather than preservation. Across the decades, its silhouette resurfaced in restored examples, technical diagrams, and the design DNA of later vehicles that carried its lineage forward. It served as a reminder of the point where mechanization became internationally accessible, echoing the shift from small-scale experimentation to broad adoption of armoured formations. Its final significance rested not in dramatic battlefield feats, but in the steady spread of engineering ideas, and its practical frame quietly proved that a machine does not need scale or spectacle to alter the trajectory of military design. It endures because its principles remain recognizable in every nation that once used it, shaped by a design that balanced ambition with attainable reality. Thanks for spending your time with this video. If you'd like more documentaries on the machines and moments that shaped history, please consider subscribing. We would love to have you back.